Taking on the role of an executor or personal representative in a will is a big step. It's a big responsibility for anyone who's taking on that job. So basically what they have to do is they have to wrap up the individuals, the will makers, final affairs. So they have to gather all the assets, make sure that we do an accounting, let all the beneficiaries know of the assets, provide them an accounting. And then from there, once that accounting is done, once that inventory is done, where we've inventoried all the assets that need to be taken through this estate administration process, then they have to follow the terms of the will to disperse the assets to the beneficiaries. It is a lot of responsibility because you owe a fiduciary duty to the other beneficiaries. So I often laugh when I see families fighting over whether they should serve as, or who should serve as the personal representative or the executor, because all you're doing is taking on more responsibility. I would much rather just be a beneficiary relying on that personal representative or executor to do all the work while I can just sit there and say, hey, where's my money? So it is a lot of effort, a lot of work, and the amount of time it takes depends on the state. For example, in the state of Michigan, to go through a probate process to administer a will, by statute, it takes at least 5 months and can take over a year. And it can create some interesting family dynamics where, especially if you're not communicating well with your beneficiaries, then it could lead to questions, and sometimes I've seen even lawsuits based on this. For example, a situation where dad had deeded a home to one of the kids, but then there was a will that said everything should be split evenly. It caused some disagreements and it ended up going into court. So understand, taking on the role of an executor or personal representative, it's a big step. You're taking on a lot of responsibility. And depending on the family dynamics, it can really kind of throw a monkey wrench into the family. Because imagine you have 3 kids, one of them is named as a personal representative. That maybe creates some uneasy feelings amongst the other 2 siblings. And what I find a lot of times is that the issue isn't what the will says or how mom or dad set up the estate plan, but just the stress of the situation creates some of the old rivalries to come up between the siblings. So understand the role of a personal representative. It is a big step, and I think a lot of people don't realize the emotional baggage that goes on along with serving that role. And then also just the amount of work that needs to be done. You have to, depending on how organized the individual was, you have to account for all of these different assets. You have to have them valued. You have to make sure you're following the proper tax rules, make sure that you handle the qualified accounts, the IRAs. So one of the things that we do for our clients is we have a guide of the things that you need to do. We kind of call it a family succession plan to make sure that everything runs smoothly as you transition assets out of the deceased individual's names to the named beneficiaries. So I think understanding the process is one of the most important things. And then communication is key. So the more you communicate typically as that executor, the easier the process will be for the rest of the beneficiaries. And so those are some of the things to think about if you are going to be serving as an executor. First of all, make sure that you have the process down, and that's where a lawyer can help you with that. But there's different guides that can assist you with that. Understand the emotional responsibility that you're taking on of dealing with a cool head during a somewhat stressful situation. Understands the length the process will take and the stress and frustration of having to deal with financial institutions. And then just communicate as much as possible. So those are some of the things to think about as it relates to the role of an executor in a will, or even a trustee of a trust. Hopefully that was helpful.